So there you go. Out of the box, this would be your airplane all together. Get your prop on. I told you I had new blade. I have a whole new hub and spinner put on here, and the blades with the decals. Looks better with that one on there, doesn't it? You're essentially all ready to put a battery in this thing and go test fly it and see what it will do. If you choose to, you can go ahead and install your, of course you got decals on the drop tanks too. You can install your drop tanks if you want to. They just slide right on a rail and slide right onto your wing if you want to put those on. I'll put mine on later. Okay, this airplane has 2 mods on it. 2 mods that actually require a purchase. 3 mods if you want to include the control rod mod that I did to that elevator that I showed you a little bit earlier in this particular video. But 2 particular mods that require purchasing items. The first one I did is I replaced the stock motor. What your airplane comes with is a FMS 4250. I think it is, or 4520. I don't know the numbers, but it's a 540 kV motor. And I flew this thing with it stock. It flew just fine. It works good. But after a while, you know, 4 or 5 flights, and you're getting really comfortable with it, the airplane flies super smooth, super graceful. It is the easiest flying airplane that I've flown so far. Even the high wing timber doesn't fly as smooth as this P-51 from FMS. It is just so graceful, and it just does what you want to do, and it is not a struggle at all. It's so easy to fly. But after a while, you know, you get used to it, then you start realizing you could go a little faster, or you could use a little more power. And if you go to the forums, guys have all kinds of different engine mods across the board. There are different engine sizes they put in to make it go faster, a lot faster. Sometimes they have to change the speed controller to go with it. Some of them even to the point where they've even had to look into a metal hub backing plate. But FMS on their website for this airplane has a recommended upgrade, and it is 1 size higher motor. It's a 580. So it's the FMS 4250 580 kVA as opposed to the 540 that comes with it. So I installed the 580. And the reason I went with that instead of some larger, better motor that some people talk about is because I can put the 580 in there, which is what's in there now, and not have to change anything else. I can keep the same electronic speed controller. I can keep everything the same. All I had to do is take out the 540, plug in the 580, and it's good to go. And it is a little bit faster, but it has a lot more climbing power, so you can do verticals a whole lot better, higher loops. It's not super faster as far as straight line speed, but it gives you a lot more power for the verticals and climbing. That's all I need it for. I don't need to go faster than scale. So I'm good with that. So I get the 580 modified upgrade in there now. The other upgrade I did is, if you remember in the beginning of this video, not this one, but I think the second video, part 2, I mentioned my concern about the side plates on the landing gear trunnions. If you look in here, you'll see the landing gear trunnion. It has these 4 screws that hold the whole trunnion retract mechanism in place. If you look really close, you'll see that these plates here, the side plates, are aluminum. That's not what comes with the airplane. What comes with the airplane is these guys right here. It looks something like, it goes like that. and on the inside is a cam path. That is where this little pin rides on the camshaft there to make the retract operate. So you take those 3 screws out, you take that safety clip out, you slide the side off, plates off, and then you just simply install the 2 metal ones. And you just put the metal ones back in place, being careful to make sure everything lines up, that that gliding pin stays inside the groove on the new side plates like it's supposed to be. Make sure everything seats together before you tighten it all down with the 3 screws. Make sure all of your roll pins are in place and they're seated properly. This rear pin's in place to where you can actually get the safety clip back on it. Then you can tighten it all back down, and then you just install the thing again with the 4 screws to hold it in place. I did that mod because after 2 or 3 landings with the gear with the plastic ones in place, I found that my struts were getting a lot more slop and play in them, and it was increasing every landing. I'd get a little bit more play front and back and left and right, and I knew eventually I was probably going to crack one of the side plates. With the new aluminum ones installed, now you can get, this is from CNC Small Parts. You can order the 2 side plates for each strut, so it'd be 4 aluminum pieces. You can order those, just the side plates alone, or you can order from CNC Small Parts the entire landing gear retract mechanism as a whole assembly. Probably the best way to go, because when you just put the side plates on the original stock gear retract assembly, I discovered that there's still an inherent slop between the side plates. They're just not a perfect, they're not a perfect machine fit. So there's a little bit of slop back and forth, front to back on there. What I ended up doing was I took some plastic pieces as shim stock and I shimmed on both sides to reduce that. And it's been working for me fine. I have probably 30 landings on this thing, and that little play that I have after shimming has not increased. It's just been maintaining the same, so that mod works fine. So I got the aluminum side plate mods from CNC Small Parts, and I have the 580 motor upgrade. That's the only upgrades I've done on this. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the third thing on this airplane that I do not like. I've already told you the first 2 things that I don't like. The first is the assembly of the 2 wing halves together and how they didn't fit well, and I had to do some filing on that conduit to get the 2 halves to line up. That was a major issue I did not like. The second one being the installing the vertical onto the tail. The way that the tongue and groove slots were on the front and on the back, had a very difficult time getting over that center hinge point for the elevator. I told you about that. That was, I had to do a mod. I had to cut back a little bit into the aft groove for the tongue groove for that vertical, just to give it, to allow it to drop down a little bit earlier than normal so I could clear that. I didn't like that. Those are the 2. And then the last thing I don't like about this airplane, it's not a problem yet, I don't like the size of the clevises. The clevises on these things are really small, almost like microplane clevises. In the pins, the locking pins in the clevis that go through the horn are very small in diameter plastic pins. And if this thing doesn't snap well, if it doesn't snap well and you try to move it, you can actually break that pin. So this has to be installed perfectly for that to work right. Now I have a smaller P-51. I have a Harbor Freight P-51. Let me get that down here for you. This is what bothers me. Many of you have seen a Harbor Freight P-51. It's very much the same size as the Park Zone. Look at the two airplanes. A size comparison between the two. See? The Harbor Freight is much smaller. Okay, the reason I show you this little Harbor Freight P-51, the clevises on this Harbor Freight P-51 are nearly twice the size as the one on the FMS. This is only a 34-inch wingspan. This is a 57-inch wingspan. So here is a clevis from one of the Harbor Freight planes. It looks just like that one there on the elevator for the FMS P-51. Same type of clevis. Look at the size difference. Look at this. The pin is much beefier. It's just a overall bigger clevis, stronger clevis, but it uses the same size control rod on the two airplanes. This clevis is much more sturdy than the one that comes with the larger airplane. I don't like that. I've had an incident where somehow, I don't know whether it's something I did, but the locking sleeve had backed off and the pin was unlatched, and I was flying this airplane around, and then when I landed it, I saw that the center pin was nearly split in half and just barely hanging onto the edge of that horn. Almost a disaster. That would not have happened had I had a larger clevis like this one here. So that's the third thing I don't like about this. These really cheap Harbor Freight planes have a much better control rod integrity system than the FMS. But that's all I got for you guys, so it's time for me to go ahead and just put this airplane up, and I think I covered everything that would be on the build for this, and a mod if you want to do some of the mods. You can go on the RC group forums on the electric planes, electric warbirds, and you'll find occasionally a whole lot of, well actually a lot of entries on the there's a big thread for the FMS 1450 millimeter P-51, the D version and the B version. And if you really want to research through there's a lot on the mod, especially in the last year. Just go through the last year and all the different motors guys are putting in there. The new improved backing plate that somebody has made out of metal, aluminum, and you can get some good ideas of what to do to mod your airplane. I'm just going to stick with the basics for what I got, because for my purposes they work fine. Alright guys, I hope this works for you. This is all done, so happy flying and thanks for watching.